Now let's talk about the lights and the textures that are in this scene. So first, let's have a look at the materials that we've been using. We have quite a few, and we're following a very simple color scheme of red, white and blue. And if I open up the lettering, which you'll see on the word all, I'm just going to double click to open up the material editor. And we have a simple sort of light blue color, a lighter version in the luminance channel. And in the reflectance, I've just removed the default specular and just added a Beckman. And I've just changed the layer Fresnel to use the PET preset. And you can see in the assignment tab that that's actually applied to quite a lot of objects. Now, if we move over to the blue edging here, it's one of my favorite materials. This has, again, a color, some diffusion. I'm using the invert direction, the new invert direction in R18. And now if we look in the luminance, that's just adding a bit of brightness. The transparency is giving us this kind of plexiglass, tinted glass look. And of course, we've added some reflection. I've added a second layer of reflection that has the thin film shader on as well. And just using a gradient to break it up so we can add some variation. If I open up this red material, you'll see it's very, very similar to the blue. And that's assigned to the sports icons. And I'm using a trick here I mentioned in the animation movie about using MoGraph to fade in objects. And to do that, we talked about the setup in the animation movie. And then in the alpha channel, you can add the MoGraph color shader. And if we look at the sports logos, I'm just going to change my shot. And if you can't see this, just press Shift V, go to the HUD options and make sure that camera is checked. And then we can get this drop down and I can change to shot F. And if we scrub back, you'll see that they're fading in, just fading in ever so slightly there. And this also was used on the top stars. So we'll change to shot B. And if I scrub through, you'll see that they're fading in. And so essentially the top star material is the same as the lettering. It's just we've got that alpha channel turned on and it's using the MoGraph color shader to fade in those stars. So there's a shiny blue and a shiny red, which are again very similar. Let's just look at the blue. It's just simply a bit of color, a little luminance to add a bit of pop, and a very basic reflection, again using that PET preset. So when I was building these materials, I kind of started with one, then duplicated them and just changed certain values just so I'd get the palette of colors and different effects, but they're all based off a very similar starting point. So let's talk about the lighting. And you can see we've got 3 lights here. Got this rim at the top, a key, and over here a fill light. And of course we have a sky object as well. Now we wouldn't be able to pick up all those lovely reflections without a decent material on our sky object. So what I did was I did a little search and I found, if I scroll down, just search for free HDRI, you can see at the top there, and I thought this one looked pretty good, so I visited the page and then downloaded it using this link here. And you can do the same. So now what we can do is apply that material. We'll go into the color channel, that's all we need, and we'll add that HDR to our sky object. I'm just going to say no and close that down. And then we will be able to see those reflections of this material in the object here. And really that sky is the key to this whole lighting setup, because without something to reflect, the materials would just look so boring. Now, I want to show you the different stages of lighting. So we will open up the picture viewer. And this is the first shot without any lights on. And then when we add some lighting, it just adds that dynamic look to it. It's all, it's already flat before, no lights here. So we've got some lighting here to bring out some shadows as well. And you can see that just down here, you can see the shadows over here. And then when we add the sky in, let's just look at the sky. You can see now we've got the reflections, and it's just making the top edges of this really pop if we just toggle between those two. And the reflections add life when the object is in motion or we're changing our perspective with an animated camera. Let's just close that down. And I just want to talk about one more thing about the materials. You can notice here on the shield and the crest, we've got multiple materials on this object. If I just zoom in here, and let's just take a look at this angle, and you can see, so we have the shield. The base material is that shiny blue, and that's just applied over here. And then on the rounding, so I've added the R1 to the selection field. If I turn that off, it's now overtaken this blue. So I'm going to make sure that that's defined to the rounding. And then that blue color comes back. And on the top, on the cap, I've added the selection C1, and that just makes that white material just cover the cap here. And for the crest, very similar. The base is just that shiny red, and then the cap is this shiny blue. So you can add multiple materials to extrude objects just by using the built-in selections that they have. So that was a look at how the object, this logo, was lit, and a look at the materials that were created and applied to it. Next, we'll look at the setup for the multipass render and getting it out of Cinema 4D and compositing in After Effects.